All right, Heralds, welcome back to the show. I got special guests today. I have Jonathan Marks Baravecchia and I have Sean Lewis from the new book, Bear, Pirate, Viking Queen. I got it on the first try. You all should put applause in the bottom. We're going to have some fun talking about their book. I want to go over some of their... they've sent the book out and some people have given them some quotes about the book. I got to put my glasses on because I'm an old man. Dreamy and impressionistic, but with all the rousing adventure you'd expect from a story teeming with pirates, a ghostly Viking ship, and oh yeah, a bear. Unlike anything that you've seen on the stands today, a story that moves unexpectedly like the tides that it takes place on. A dark storm of adventure across a horizon filled with pirates and mysticism. A book worth your time and coin. A glorious fever dream thumbing its nose at every expectation with languid, liquid, lethal fusion of history, hallucination, and horror. A unique and irresistible book. Hauntingly beautiful. This is a mystery of a tortured man and the demons he encounters. Dives deep and pulled me into the emotional waves. A beautiful illustrated hallucinatory voyage across dark and dangerous waters. It's Pirates of the Caribbean as directed by Ingmar Bergman. What a beautiful issue, stunning work. I love this beautiful watercolor imagery, savage lyricism, genre-bending, surprise, sparse, poetic prose. Can't wait to read it more. It rules. Want to step back to that one, but unlike anything that you've seen, it's true, man. You gotta, like, I got a chance to read the first issue, and it's different, man. It's different, but it in all the best ways that we're always looking for as comic book readers. And you notice that these aren't like amazing, great. The quotes are like really long and thoughtful. Like most quotes are like 2 words. Throughout the industry, artists, writers, people, book writers, and actors are all, and you have more quotes, right? You still
There's more. We've gotten a bunch of them, and there's more coming. It's been pretty overwhelming.
Fantastic. And so, what was the birth of this book? Let's start all the way at the beginning. I think that's from John, right?
No, we're laughing. I think because we have told this story now a couple times because it's a good story. But we the initial birth was when Sean was writing or Above Snakes Head was coming out. I think he was done with it, and I saw it. I was reading it. I'd done a sketch cover. I posted it on Instagram. I don't know if I sent it to Sean or I tagged him in it or something, but we started dialogue. He reached out, talking we should do something together, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, cool. Like, obviously, I would love to work with you. Interested in working with me. I said, do you live in New York? I'm like, I live in New York, and I feel like there's a 50% chance that you live in New York and a 50% chance you live anywhere else in the world. Like, yeah, I do live in New York, but I don't live in the city. I live like about an hour, upstate in the Hudson Valley. So, my wife and I just left Brooklyn. It's like, we live in the Hudson Valley. He's like, oh, no way. Yeah, we live in a place called Beacon. I said, no way, we live in a place called Beacon. He's like, well, we don't live in Beacon. Like, I lied. We live in Fishkill, which is the next town over. I also lied. And I live in Fishkill, which is the next town over. So we live like a mile from each other.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, well, this is silly now. Like, meet up for a drink and just started talking. And I think I had a sketchbook, and we were just talking about, getting to know each other, and then talking about what's a cool idea. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Just bouncing ideas off of each other. And truly, it started with like Sean asking me, like, what do you want to draw? And it was just literally was a list of like, well, like pirates are cool. I like drawing animals. Like, I was in I just read or for whatever reason I had like pirate ships in my head. I was like, nautical stuff is cool, and then a bunch of stuff that is not in the book.
Dinosaurs.
Yeah, dinosaurs, and like we grew up on superheroes and like I'm a big fantasy guy or like mythology or blah blah blah. So we just had a list of stuff. And Sean was like, okay, cool. Like, I think we must have highlighted maybe the 4 bear, pirate, Viking, queen nouns. And Sean's like, okay, cool. I'll figure something out, and then we'll meet back up again, and like we'll try to find a story here. So I mean, that was kind of it. Sean went away, and he came back with basically a poem, and I read through it. It's like no other script. It's not a script at all. It's really just a poem or a couple pages of like musings on sort of empire and imperialism and violence and a bear and it's like, okay, cool. And I think that that first poem, that first document was like, maybe 3 or 4 pages. Like, cool, man, this is like 100-page issue. Like, and I don't know what to do with it. So then we sort of massage it and we figure out different directions to take it.
Oh, very cool. Let's step back a little bit, and I want to go back into your earlier part of your career, because what a lot of people don't know is that you've done some Marvel work and a lot of independent cover work and even some independent books very quietly. Like
I'm not trying to be quiet about it.
Well, I get that, but I mean, they're good books. I mean, most of them I actually read and didn't even know, because I obviously didn't know you till I met you through Sean, that like the art is standout. Like if probably everybody out there who's watching has at least one Dark Tower book. It's that's Jonathan's work. So you take a bigger look at that, and then you've done some Wolverine. Yeah. And so tell me what most of your work at Marvel has been freelance.
No, I was doing work for another company, Aspen Comics, when I first sort of broke in, and then I was offered an exclusive contract with Marvel. And so when I was under contract with them is when I did the Dark Tower, the Lady of Shadows, and Bitter Medicine series. And then I did work on Wolverine and Savage Wolverine, some Man-Thing, some Doctor Strange. And at that was sort of the time when I started painting more books. And it was... The books that I did at Marvel are great and super fun. They were having a little bit of a hard time. Painted comics are a hard sell.
Right.
And so as I was decided, like actively taking my career down that road, then I started doing more cover work and
you really have to have a champion like Sienkiewicz, who had a different style from the time when he was out. He really didn't have a superhero style, and there must have been an editor there somewhere who was like, "Here, we're going to put you on epic books, and we're going to put you on ROM, which nobody's reading anywhere."
Sienkiewicz started out as kind of a Neil Adams clone, though. Like, he was doing that house style before he started to move into that other direction. And a lot of, like, early books fans hated, were, bring back the other guy on New Mutants, and, like, why does Moon Knight now look like this? And, like...
Why is he stretched?
Yeah. I guess amongst those voices there must have been somebody who was championing it, and someone in editorial who was like, this is cool.
Right. Yeah, because I think that this is going to be the breakout book. I think a lot of people are going to see this because it's stunning. And then the story, Sean, that goes along with it is insane.
That's fair. There's a bear, a pirate, a Viking, and a queen in it. I got a chance to read the first issue, and I read it twice. And I like that when it comes in a comic. I have to read it a second time. I get to digest the art all over again. I get to go, page by page, reading all the dialogue. Sometimes when you're doing paneling in a certain way, sometimes you need to go through it a second time. Maybe you went out of order. Maybe you skipped a panel. So, yeah, I mean, it's a great read, but it's also shocking to the eyes. So, when you got this kind of artwork, what was when you went to put the story to the art? Was there a challenge there, or was it? No, not really. I mean, I wouldn't say a challenge, just because like I had seen John's notebook, and I had seen a book that John had done, I think through Kickstarter, called Mariner. John gave it to me, and honestly, part of what I gave Jonathan as a script, or as the starting document, was because when I read Mariner, I was like, oh, this reminds me of Rime of the Ancient Mariner. I mean, it is Rime of the Ancient Mariner. I remember reading it in school, and I was like, oh, I mean, I don't know. It's more of a question of so then I was like, I guess I'll write an epic poem. Like, it kind of just, I was like, oh, that's interesting. This art is kind of epic and mythic. I'll play, and if it doesn't work, I'll make a more traditional script. Each artist I've worked with, I think the scripts have been wildly different. Like, what Caitlin Yarsky worked on in Coyotes does not look like what Hayden Sherman got for The Few. They look, and what Javier Fernandez gets on King Spawn is completely different than all of them. So it was starting from that. So I knew, well, one, with that, I'm like, I know I'm gonna be surprised because the art's gonna like take a really full shape.
but I think what it gave me, what's great is then I can kind of get to learn the book again. Because like the artists that I work with, I'm pretty particular about it. I really like artists who have a very definitive style of their own. And then what's interesting to me is like, how do I make this the greatest book that feels like it had one voice as opposed to multiple voices? Like, how can I, we'll start with the poem, and then it'll become a completely different thing that's much bigger and epic than what the poem ever was. And then I have to come back in and go like, all right, this thing looks, it's kind of, I always played sports growing up, so it's kind of like a fun challenge, because like, I see how good he's doing, I'm like, oh, you're not gonna outshine me. like it becomes like a little bit of a sparring, as I'm like, fuck, I gotta really deliver, or this, or it'll become very clear if the story sucks.
Yeah.
Because it'll be like, this art is undeniable. So if you're like, oh, I got so bored, or this happened.
Right.
So that is where it becomes fun for me, is just getting really particular of like, all right, how do we really make the surprises in this work? And I also knew that I was giving him
And there's a lot of surprises.
there's a lot of surprises.
a lot of surprises.
Well, that was the
In
thing.
a great way.
We talked about that a lot. Like, we spent a lot of time, actually, we still do, I think, talking about the comics we loved growing up. And sometimes it's pages, sometimes it's an issue. And the thing we found ourselves, I think, talking about a lot were things like, oh, remember when you were reading that book and then you didn't know this guy was this, and then you turned and you were like, oh my God, and it like blew your mind.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, man, if we could make a book that's consistently doing that, I miss that, So that became really the big challenge for us, of like, how do we make a book that, almost every, in theater you do this a lot. That's my background, is like, how every 10 to 15 pages do we have a surprise that you're like, there's no way that happened. Like, there's no, oh, it did. And then like 15 pages more, you're like, wait, and then that's what, and that became like the fun bit of it. But when you have great art, I don't think it becomes a challenge. It can become a bit of it's a challenge in terms of keeping up, like what I was saying, but it gets exciting. You're just like, oh shit, this book's already half great.
Yeah. And
Sorry, Sean, but going back to the art,
No, it's good.
the rest of the industry is really going to have to step up this year. This book will blow you away. The style is different than most everything you'll see out there. The amount of content, 72 pages?
72 pages for the first issue.
Right. And for all my comic shops that watch me about, know that the price in the previews guide is wrong. It is $4.99 for 72 pages. Man, that's an easy hand sell for us that are in the comic industry. $5. You pay $5 for this 20 pager, or you can pay $5 for this 72 pager with unbelievable art and a tested, writer, somebody that's been in the business now over 5 years.
Almost 10.
10
crazy.
has written, one of the biggest books. King Spawn was one of the highest selling books. The year it was out, it's the highest selling book. I mean, when you go back to the 90s, you're not going to beat that nowadays because of how small the industry is now. But really creeping towards those 90s numbers, over 500,000 copies for just number one. So over the year, there was well over 1 million copies sold.
Yeah.
Right. So these two together have created this amazing book. You'll see it in previews. It's on the first page of Image. It's in the bottom right-hand corner. The price is kind of tucked in the bottom. I had a look and I was like, $7.99. Sean's been telling everybody it's $4.99.
Be awesome if I was just lying.
So I sent him a picture and he's like, they screwed me. But there's one, it's not a panel, it's a splash page that's broken up into like 20, 25 panel. It's crazy. It's an important part of the book, and it has the captain of the ship in this huge splash page. John, please tell me about, like, what was your thinking about using all these panels to tell this story on the one page, but it actually comes together as this huge splash page. It's really incredible.
Thank you. A couple things were in my head for that. So Sean and I, wanted to sort of eschew tradition, like we were saying, keep the reader guessing. Very easy to have, not easy, but predictable to have a first issue where we follow a pirate's journey to becoming a pirate or something like that. So we didn't want to do that. So I had to condense that down. And the other thing was, if I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, the script poem from Sean, I think said, you know, protagonist becomes a pirate next, or something like that. It was, you know, not in a shitty way, but in a like figure it out, like however you visualize that, great. Right. And so to me, I mean, it's an impressive looking spread. Thank you. But it's also like the most efficient way to like get across like we're passing time, things are changing,
and
it's a bunch of interesting imagery.
When you're reading it, like that's what I said when I looked at it. I said, "Oh, he's made the decision."
Yeah.
Right. This whole splash page is broken up and has all these little things going on. Tells it in one page, which there's 72 pages.
We had to like get through some stuff.
I think some of that's also though out of the way that the book was written. Like it was, I've never gotten to work with somebody who was there. Like it's always like emails. Right. And so the great thing is I mean, in some ways, maybe it's a shortcut for me, but like some of the writing was also us sitting in the living room and talking, because like it's very true that like what we would talk about at times is like I remember when we were talking about that section, it was like, oh, this would normally be a 4 to 5 page transformation of the character. And in terms of like when we were talking about the surprises, like, is there a way that we do it in 1 or 2 pages that you can do his whole life? In just that, which then obviously becomes like the challenge for John, but it's interesting. Like I think that was a lot of how we kept approaching the book, is just like, how is this normally done, or how have we seen this done so many times that we don't need to see it that way anymore?
The crazy thing is like this is more like an old school book where the writer and the artist were to get like back in the old days of the bullpens and everybody working at Marvel and at DC. Or even these guys, small indies where Laird and Eastman were together, hanging out, doing it together. Right. Sitting at a table doing it together. I mean, it has that feel in the storytelling, but I think it's like so new. Even though it's telling a really old story, it's really hard to explain. I don't want to give too much away because it's so good.
It's fine. You haven't seen issue 2. There's no way you would know. Like, the book keeps changing on you in a way that I'm really excited by.
Yeah. The collaborative, I was just going to say, like, being able to work together, like, in the way that Sean and I have, was invaluable, yeah. And it is like the old bullpen where we're bouncing ideas back and forth. And I don't know, this is like a little bit behind the curtain, but like Sean and I were together a couple days ago doing final edits on issue 3. And even at that point, this doesn't, like, I don't like this anymore. Change this. Not the art, but like, let's move this, let's change this, let's get rid of this, and I want to, you know, use this, because I did all the lettering too, so, you know, let's make this flow perfectly.
Right.
Because we have the luxury of being physically, like, together, being like, changing, moving, you know, whatever.
And being able to, like, you know, it's like collaboration is tricky, and it's especially tricky when you can't be with the person. Because you're just sending emails back and forth, and it becomes like, do you know how much time I spent on this shit? And now you want me, where it's very different when you can sit there and you can, both of us do it to each other, where like sometimes John will see something and be like, this text here, like, I just don't feel like this connects with where the page is going. And I'll be like, we trust each other at this point, so it becomes like, all right, let me look at it. And vice versa, like, I'll be looking at like where the lettering placements will be, and it'll be like, I don't even know if we need, like that literally was Saturday going like, I don't even think we need these two narration boxes, like, let's just get rid of them and move over. I don't know. I wish that my books could always be made this way. I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think you might start to see some of this coming back because some of the small independent people are either doing all of the work themselves, which sometimes good, sometimes bad. Not everybody can do both.
Sure.
There's so many people doing both that really shouldn't be doing the writing. And if they let somebody else write, it can be that much better. But they do need that collaboration, because I think like when I see that in a book and you can tell that they've spent time with each other.
I think there's also a flip though. There's so many artists or so many writers who I think can learn how to actually collaborate with their artist. Right. And I have to be it's just like, because a lot of the artists I've worked with will talk later, or sometimes I'll even see stuff. I'm like, this feels different. And they'll be like, that was tough. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're just like, I was a visual stenographer for that person, where I don't think that's what The form's a visual form.
I agree with you. It's either one person doing it or it's a total collaboration. I hate, you know me, I hate books that are over talky, and I hate books that just don't have any talking in them. But
I even think though in some ways like being the writer on a comic, I think should almost be more being an executive producer on an album or a director of a movie. Where like in some ways like I'm sure some people hear like you got a poem that sounds like a nightmare. What a dick Sean is. But I think there's also a level of like there's a difference between just like a random poem or something that's evocative. I think like the biggest thing you can do with your artist is like how do I create an evocative moment? How do we get excited about it? How are we on the same page with it? And I think I sometimes, from what I hear from other people, I'm like, that's really what the form is like, how do you get the artist to be most fully them?
right.
And I feel like a lot of time, I don't know, I'm not an artist, so maybe it's like, I'm always pulling me. The poem was bullshit.
Well, the flip side of it, I think, is like finding collaborators who's willing, because it's my job to find that evocative moment.
Right.
Like that's what the illustrator should be
Right.
trying to find. But, you know, not everyone is as willing to genuinely collaborate with we've got this, you go on and on about how beautiful the wind through the sail is as the ocean rocks. But Sean, what I really want to paint is like underneath the ship with, the pirate drinking. And to have a collaborator or partner who's like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And then, to trust me enough
Right.
to be like, well, it fits with the story, then it fits with the story. And there were like, not in any dramatic way, there are pages of art that didn't make it into the story too, that were like, I don't think this works. Or, like I was honestly, it was mostly me getting ahead of myself and like, yeah, now we're going to do this and this and this. And then Sean could be like, with a more realized like next chapter,
Sure.
next section. And like, I think we should take it in this direction. And that direction makes more sense, so then the pages are done.
Right. Now you work in, let's get to the technical side of it. You work in really big pages, like
Some of them. It depends on how close to the deadline I am. Yeah. so like they start out at 13 by 20, and then as I get closer, they get smaller and
it gets smaller and smaller.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Or in
Some
pieces,
even bigger,
actually.
right?
Because
when you put the pieces together,
the 13 by 20 is like the regular size that I was working for this book.
Mhm.
There are some pages like that spread that are several pages of art that are then put together. So some of those panels are single, not that big, but 8 by 10 or 5 by 10 images unto themselves.
right?
That I just put digitally. I put everything together.
That 13 by
So-
20 is like old school
It's very big.
golden age.
Yeah,
Golden
it's,
Age was on those big,
it was like
big
3
ones.
up, I guess.
Maybe even a
yeah.
little bit better.
I don't know.
Maybe Golden Age might even be a little bit bigger than that. Like 11 by 17 is like standard what a lot of people
Yeah.
work on. But it's funny that even when it's shrunk down, like I read it on a phone and I absolutely hate. I know, so I
Yeah.
can't wait
Oh
for
my
the hard
God.
copies. Can't wait for the hard copies to come out.
God.
A phone.
I do, but I'm never at it because I'm either here or at my regular job or making
Jesus.
YouTube videos.
Of course, you got to go back and look at different panels.
Oh yeah. So like I'm zooming in and it's amazing how
That's
making
actually-
it that big and then it being that small that it still holds that that wonder, that amazing like the how the colors change, and it's not like in your face colors, right? Because you're working in, is that inks or dyes or
No, it's watercolor. Traditional
Just
watercolor. and
traditional
ink.
watercolors.
Yeah, and some mixed.
they just the color change is so subtle and amazing. I can't like it's crazy good. And even though it has shrunk down, you still have that grandiose feel.
Yeah.
Right? That's the word I was looking for. It feels way bigger than it is. Like
Yeah.
I'm looking on this little phone.
You can
And-
zoom in on the phone too.
Yeah.
So then I can't like hide behind any other tricks. So
Right.
The art has to, you can look at it. It's probably the size that I made it. So
But it is quite stellar looking. Now it comes out May 1st,
May 1st.
right?
Yep.
You guys are going to be on the stands for Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
how's that,
yeah.
How's that feel?
Good. It'll feel better if they move.
It's great. It's a great spot for it. Well,
I just now found out about it.
Yeah.
2 seconds ago.
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't even put that together.
Yeah.
Free Comic Days on the 4th.
should've told
It'll
you.
drop on the 1st, which is the Wednesday. So it'll be on the stands for the Free Comic Book Day, which is good. And hopefully retailers are filling their shelves up with books. This would be an outstanding one to start with, especially to bring in some older readers. Not that I don't think there's anything that's really offensive for little kids. There's maybe a little bit of gore. It's kind of horror-esque feeling it in parts.
There might be some strong language at one point.
There's some language and some violence.
There's definitely some
I
violence.
would be more impressed with a young kid who's like has the patience and interest enough in that material.
That's what I'm saying.
And if
is that
they're
it'd be
there, then
a tough read
give
for
them
them.
give them
That's
a book
what.
because
Yeah.
that's a good reader.
Yeah, but I think 12, maybe 13 and up, definitely could read it for sure. But so, is it going to be 3 issues or 4? 3 issues. Okay, so first one comes out in May. Second one comes out.
Yeah, just each month.
Yeah. May,
Okay.
June,
First
July.
first week of each month. So the first week of May, first week of June, first week of July. We just did the solicit for the
Yeah.
July one.
June 5th, I think.
So is the
July.
trade paperback going to be called the Book of Nouns or?
We were talking on the drive down. I was like, if we do another book, we should do like samurai, ninja, bull.
bookcase?
Just like really make that the brand.
Yeah. Well, I think it's actually really brave. I think it's really interesting. It is like so
Brave
many.
is what people say. This was a bad idea, but you stuck with it.
Yeah, you
So
did
good
it.
job.
You
idiot.
went with it.
Yeah, all right. I guess it's the nicest ways to say it. But is every book going to be 72 or just the first?
They're all oversized. The first
Yeah.
one is the only one that's 72.
The
and then
next
it's like,
2 are 40
Yeah.
something.
48?
pages.
48's usually the.
well, it's in rolls of 8, but how much is actual? I mean,
Yeah,
it's in
the-
prints
the-
of 8.
Eight.
There'll be
So
somewhere
The
in the
story
40.
itself, I think, is 40, and then plus
Yeah.
whatever.
Whatever
else we put in
pages
there.
that.
So yeah, the trade will end up being
That'll
like
be a-
150
Ooh,
pages.
Yeah.
trade.
Yeah, it'll be big.
That'll be a big trade. Now, is all of them going to be $4.99?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
No, the
Yeah.
shorter ones are more money.
That'd be amazing. That would actually be an amazing con.
Smart.
And then just be like, now it's 10.
Now it's 10. Yeah.
No free
No,
rides.
$4.99
Well-
for all of them.
Yeah, that was important to us.
Marvel and DC are making books that are $9.99 that aren't even 48 pages.
No, we're fully aware. Look, a big part of the $4.99 was like pricing it, because at Image you make your own pricing, and that's always a tricky thing because you're basically saying like, how much profit do we want to make, and like how much do you believe in the book is kind of
How much
what
risk are we
pricing.
willing to take?
How much
Yeah.
risk are you willing to take, and how much do you believe in the book, and also like what's the reality of the market? And it's like, I know that retailers, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
And I know for people buying books, like how many new books can you add? And if a book's $10, $11,
Right.
and also I was
You're
just like,
cutting something.
and honestly, I saw the first issue and I was like, this thing's amazing. Like this is a stunning book.
Yeah.
I would like everyone to have the chance to buy it. And once you price something at 10, you're basically saying like half of the audience we're saying are not invited to the party.
Right.
Where I think once you do it at 5, like we're taking a hit. We're going like, nah, beer's on us. Like that is kind of
It's true.
what it is.
It's true.
I
Yeah.
mean,
I know being in the retail that it is definitely, a price point that we don't ever see for that size.
no.
Um,
It's doable though.
yeah.
Like that's the thing
I
that's
think so.
frustrating for me is like it's totally
especially
doable.
with this kind of content.
Yeah.
Like
You just have to believe that people are going to be drawn to
it's
it.
not black and white. It's
No.
not like usually when if you get a bigger book with this kind of price point, it's completely black and white, which
Right.
can be cool. I'm not against it. It can be cool. But this is, I think that the whole book is painted. It's crazy.
It's gorgeous.
It's crazy.
We want, the barrier to entry to be as low as possible so that retailers have an easy time hand selling.
Right.
And so that collectors or people who don't, you come into the shop on a Wednesday and you pick up your pull box that's Batman's and X-Men's and
Right.
which is awesome. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna try this new thing because it's $5. I'm not putting anything else back.
Right.
I'm just gonna try something new, and it's 3 issues. It's affordable. It's a great story.
It's an amazing
It
story.
looks good.
Well, and it's also it's a way of us all saying to the market, we want to make this type of book,
Right.
right? Like, if we say like this is $10, then like if a shop has a hard time with it or whatever, then like
we never get it gets harder to make this type of
Right.
book again. Where we know the books. I mean, it's not gonna sound arrogant, but like we know the book is special. It's cool. It's like when we hold and look at it, we're both like, holy shit, you
Yeah.
this.
Well, everybody knows that like we're a reader-centric shop. We bring in a lot of indies, but I can't take big swings at some indies. 4 or 5.
Right.
10, but if all of the get 5 or 10 issues, like, I mean, that's a considerable number of sales. And I think that when you see the value in this book and just how amazing it looks, and I've sent it out to a few people. Sorry.
Oh, that's what I want.
So some of my close friends to in YouTube to check it out, and they've said great things about it too. But what we really need is what people don't do for comic shops, and that's find it in the previews,
yeah.
dog-ear the page, bring it into your
Huge.
shop, and pre-order it. Because I'll tell you, so for every person that pre-orders a book for me, and this has been my policy since I opened, if you pre-order a book, I buy 2. So for every person that buys one, I know there's 2 other people that will walk in and I can hand sell it.
Right.
Especially if people are just looking at it in the previews guide and getting excited about it
Right.
just in the previews guide. And so it's important that everybody goes out. I'm telling you, this is going to be an amazing book to read and to have. Could it be a movie? I don't think so, but you never know with movies. But I'll tell you what, it'll be one of your favorite books of all
Man,
time.
who cares? It's a comic book. It's a comic book now. Go buy the comic book.
Remember when we everybody cared so much? Whether I'm telling you what, the new books that are coming out that are great reads are never going to get made movies of, and they're the hottest books on the stands right now because that's what we want. We want something we can read and something we can look at. Man, this book is just gorgeous, and the story has got me thinking that I'm crazy. So it's a little hallucinogenic.
Not the first person who said that.
No.
Yeah,
Most of the quotes we've gotten, people mention it's very dreamy and hallucinatory.
it is, and it flows like that, and it's not like it's like hard cuts. It's not that choppy.
No.
Well, no, it's funny. Before the cameras, we were talking about like Anatomy Lesson, the Swamp Thing books, and like my favorite books are a bunch of books like that. And old DC, like Black Orchid, has always been one of my favorite books. And like the thing is those books were also what I would call hallucinatory, like Ditko's like old Doctor Strange stuff. And I miss that. I miss like opening the book and seeing like. I was too young at the
Steranko's work in the 60s and 70s.
Where it was like an acid trip.
Yeah.
Like it was full. It was alive.
The book was alive. And that's something where I'm like, I'm desperate for, like as a creator and as a reader, is I'm like, I want the book to be an experience in and of itself. I mean, I'm a theater guy originally, and that's all about experience. And I think like each book, an indie book, I'm constantly trying to figure out like, how is this an emotional experience for you, not just
disposable.
I think that's when comics were the biggest, when that was happening, when every book was an experience.
They're also the books we still talk about now.
Right.
Right? Like Anatomy Lesson's like 40 years old.
Yeah.
We still like, it was like one of the first things we talked about. We came in, it's like, remember that story? And we're
Yeah,
like, we're
and
still in it.
For me, Swamp Thing, of course, was a big thing, and I transitioned from the original Swamp Thing books, which were like really, really horror, to the beginning of Saga Swamp Thing, where they give the Swamp Thing a persona, so the writer had somebody to actually speak for Swamp Thing, mostly in his mind, but yeah, at least there was some kind of dialogue from the main character. And then into Alan Moore, which then he created vocal cords and he could speak himself.
Right.
And, and some of those that aren't key issues. Like, there's a lot of key issues in that Swamp Thing run, especially in Alan Moore. But non-key issues are some of my favorite, like when...
Isn't that with every book, though?
Every
I was
book.
obsessed with X-Men, and the X-Men books I go back and read are not ones that you can get 150 or 200. They're not big issues, but I'm like, this is an amazing character story.
Right.
Like, for 20 pages, I remember just being taken somewhere.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, that's what it's about.
That's what it's completely about. And, I don't even know if there's a villain in this book.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
I mean, it's not obvious. I don't think it's obvious yet. I don't know if the pirate is the hero or the villain.
That's great.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Love it.
Well, because the book.
And when you get to book 2, it'll change on you again. I mean, we also, it's interesting because like some of it was also like in conversations with retailers and knowing like some of the problems that a limited series can do. Is like, well, it's going to be done, and how do we get people to jump on? Like all of those things, which are totally reasonable. One of the first things we talked about is like, can each chapter work as a whole? So when you read the trade, you're like, that was fucking unreal. Yeah. But where each issue is literally its own novella, where like it has its own beginning, middle, and end, and when you get to the end of it, you're like, I got a full story. Right. Like that was a big. I mean, that was actually, I think, the most challenging for me. That was the most challenging thing, was trying to figure out how each book could come to a full ending that would stay surprising, wrap up the story for that, but yet still launch you into the next arc. So it does that.
So I do have a lot of comic shop owners that watch the channel.
Good.
So why don't you give them your best pitch for the book?
Thanks
No,
for not putting us on the spot.
Where's the art? Where's the art on the screen?
Oh,
Where's
it'll be in between you. It'll be in between you.
That's the pitch. That's my pitch.
That is a great pitch.
It was a joy to work on. It's a fascinating story. Artistically, it is important for me to like go back to some of those books that we were talking about, like the Ditko Sienkiewicz, the artist who influenced me the most, where I was looking through and like, how did he do that, or how did she do that? Like, how is this made? I want that kind of reaction, and the story itself is like an adventure, fun romp, and also sort of an intellectual exploration of. I should be looking at the cameras. You know, a fun romp that tickles your brain, and it looks good. It looks
Yeah,
you know, a painted comic.
Look, the book is,
I don't know.
the book's absurdly beautiful. So you get that right away. I was thinking nonstop about Moore's From Hell, actually, because that was the book where at least the way it made me feel when I read it, where I was like, this is fun and wild, like a horror movie, but I'm like learning about England. I'm learning about a lot of stuff in a non-didactic way. So it's like, it's everything we loved about the comics we grew up and trying to replicate that in the newest way we could because we're us, right? Like, and that's what I would say is like, if you're going like, man, I wish there was a From Hell out right now, or there was an anatomy lesson. I mean, that was what we were shooting for. You know, it's a brazen shot across the scoreboard. Like that's, I'll say that. Like, it's definitely me and Jonathan going like, let's go to war, baby.
But why not? Yeah, it's like, you know, this is the first impression-ish for me at least. So I'm like, this is the first time that we're working together. The worst that happens is nobody buys a book, and then I'm where we are now. Like, we've made a beautiful book that we can be proud of as creatives. Yeah. And I think that's the sell.
If you're
as an artifact.
If you're a store owner and you send me a DM and you give me your email, your store email, I'll send you a good portion of the first
Send
issue.
The whole first issue.
All right.
You'll send the whole first
What
issue.
do the guys say?
We'll send you every other page of the first issue.
Then it'll seem really hallucinatory. Can you imagine?
First issue.
Might make more sense.
You know, you'll see what you're buying ahead of time, and man, it's well worth it. You know, back in the day, like, there is still some comics that get sent. There's only a handful of the special dealers that get the PDFs from.
Is that true?
Yeah, they still send complimentary. Now it's all done through email. But you have to be in the echelon.
I just thought everybody got pre.
No, only certain books send to everybody.
Gotcha.
And they're usually ones that are already going to sell. Like, I don't even read them because they're like, oh, you're writing.
I know I'm ordering this.
I'm already ordering this, so I don't have to read it. But, and then like, I also have a lot of people that are into comics and are readers that watch the channel. Go pre-order it from your shop. If you don't have a shop, contact me. I'll ship it to you.
It literally is the cheapest, like the most economical chance you can take on a comic, because you're, for the price of 4 comics, you're getting a comic.
I promise you, if you watch my show and love how I get passionate about comics and how you are passionate about you're gonna love this book. I love this book. I can't wait for issue 2, and issue 1 hasn't come out yet. So now I'm kind of mad that I already read it, but I'm not mad that I already read it. I'm kind of ecstatic about it. It hits all the things that I like. If you're into, it's has a historical feel to it, but if you're not into history, it isn't, right? It's just I can't even put it in words exactly how it hits all the marks all the way through. The art, the words, the dialogue. It's not heavy on the dialogue where it's not needed. Where it is needed, it's given. It just works all the way around, and you're really going to enjoy it.
No, I would just say, thank you for having us. Yeah, FOC is April 8th. It does mean a lot. Those pre-orders are super important. So,
Yeah, and thanks for keeping shops going. Thank you for continuing to read books. I mean,
we love this stuff.
We
We
do.
love making it. So
it's got me
it's
through so
enjoyable.
much of my life. I'd like to at least pretend it'll help get you through yours. So just thank you for having us, and thank you for entertaining. Even if you're just entertaining of getting the book, thank you for that. All of it means something.
You know what I say? Keep reading comics.